Hey, DJ Anubis.
And DJ Neko.
The Metal Cyber Radio podcast. We have a special guest, Mr. Nuno Lourenco. I hope I still butchered that shit, didn't I? From Salqiu. How you doing, sir?
I'm better now that I've seen that introduction. I cannot top that.
I'm trying.
I cannot top that. So the best part of the show has already gone, and it's always down from here.
Oh my gosh, no.
So how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing fine. It's nice weather here where I'm staying, and I have a nice view.
You do?
Yeah. So my office now is in the balcony since I moved. I've actually moved last week. I moved up in life, from the 2nd to the 9th floor.
Ooh.
And now I have a balcony. So basically I spend more time here than actually in my bedroom sleeping.
That's probably what I would be doing too.
Yeah, if you have a nice day, it's great to sit outside. We have had really terribly hot weather, and then the last maybe week it's cooled down and it hasn't been like murderously hot outside.
I moved here to Brazil because I like hot weather. I was tired of being cold, so I moved here. It's always hot, so I'm fine. It's great for me.
So I was trying to think of when I actually first met you, and I think I was trying to tell her that when I was still doing the ratings on my blog, I had checked out your Anthropomorphic Souls album, All Hail the Son of the Nothing. And I remember really liking that record. And I think you actually contacted me somehow, either on Facebook or something, saying that you were the artist behind that album. Then you were starting to tell me about the Salqiu project. So do you remember that, how we actually met at the time?
I actually don't remember that because, I tried to forget my pre-Salqiu existence as a musician because it was really bad. Not that I'm good now. I'm not as bad as I was, but yeah, I probably the first release that I did with time and tried to do something different was with that project, Anthropomorphic Soul, which was more death metal based.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved on to a more black metal oriented thing, especially because I was involved in a group in a social media called Amino that had one group for black metal, and I was quite involved in it, doing reviews, and it was really nice times, and it that was the reason why I shifted from death metal to a more black metal oriented sound. Still very experimental because that's me, that's what I do, but I shifted, and also because and sorry if this offends anyone, it's easier to play black metal than death metal.
You feel more creative with the black metal.
Yeah, well, if you listen to that Anthropomorphic Soul thing, it was really everywhere. The riffs were death metal oriented, all right, but badly played. But the whole thing was really experimental. It was completely like I think you call it kitchen sink approach. So it's just mix it all and on a shaker and then just throw it out on an album. And slowly I progressed into something still experimental, but I've slowly grown into something that is more consistent, I believe. If you listen to my first albums, they're all over the place, and my recent music is more composed, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved all your stuff, including the early stuff that you don't want to own anymore. But I do remember, like, when the Salqiu project with, like, To Whom It Serves, The Triumph of Destiny. The Blackness Within, Lazarus Denied, Pariah, the two that you released this year, The Colossal Weight of My Illusion. Like I see the growth. Like it's just you have such a knack of making very interesting black metal, experimental black metal, in fact, which I really enjoy. And it's just like each album seems to get better and better as we go on, which I really
And
love.
I honestly, I'm
Thank
not
you.
a black metal fan, and I like it. So,
Yep.
like, I like experimental and like symphonic black metal, but like straight.
I will take that as a compliment.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because like some
Um,
I like Absu, I like Demu, who
yeah,
else?
the more symphonic and melodic stuff.
And
Yeah.
Mayhem.
Immortal.
Immortal,
you
not
like
Mayhem.
that.
I meant Immortal. Sorry, I like Immortal. I like Theatrics.
But speaking of which, the first record, see, Nuno was so good for sending this out to me for the first album. I was so glad to get that. And then also 09, you actually correct me on that because I thought it was 09, but it's 09.
It's 09, okay.
The Shamanic Trilogy, which I really love a lot too.
Let me see that.
It's like 3. It's so great.
Just for your knowledge, there should be about 5 people in the world that owns that tape. So you're a privileged one or a cursed one. You choose.
Yeah.
I think it's
so. Anytime you have anything, I'm going to grab it.
What is the symbol here?
On the 09.
Yeah,
record.
it looks kind of like a sun.
I think that's part of his logo for the album or the band, right?
The logo in the middle.
Yeah.
The logo in the middle is basically something that I created myself to accommodate the 0 and the none, and it's not supposed to be it's not supposed to be a twisted cross, basically a satanic thing, because I'm not into that stuff, as I'm not into religious stuff at all. I prefer to talk about other subjects and like depression and void and emotions. But it actually, like anything else, I just basically took on a pen and a paper and designed it. That's what I do.
Good. Your artwork that you've been posting online has been super creative, and I'm like, it like you capture whatever feeling that you're having or you're trying to convey. Like the other day he posted something and he's like, oh, this is to represent I forgot what it was, like this band, and you were just kind of playing around with your program, and I'm like,
well, I shouldn't take full property of that compliment, because basically I use artificial intelligence programs to do the art. But so
you know what? It's not that easy, because I tried it with different things and it didn't come out near as interesting as your stuff.
Well, you have to know the settings, and you have to be creative with the prompts and the phrases that you use.
Exactly.
And just experiment. And I actually, for this last Salqiu album, I used a very basic app that's out there to do. Using the prompts I used were actually phrases from the lyrics on the album, and the AE replied with those images, and that's what I used.
Yeah, I really like it. Every time you post a new one, I'm like, oh, okay, new wallpaper. Oh wait, here's another one, new wallpaper. It's like, just get going.
Yeah, I'm getting better at it. Actually, I'm getting better.
I'm in love with this. I think I might get this as a tattoo.
What, the 09?
Yeah.
You should get like the Salqiu logo on your back, right across the shoulders.
I do. I love it. It would be cute.
I'm thinking in revamping the Salqiu logo. So probably going for an artist to do that. A professional artist. There are very good ones out there. For instance, the one that did the logo for Thermoline, my collaborative project with the guy from Belgium and the guy from Argentina. That logo for me is the best. probably one of the best I've ever seen. So that guy is particularly good at it. And there are other artists out there very good making logos. So I'll that part I'll let the professionals work. I feel guilty already for doing art on AE apps. So because there are people actually, well, it's evolution, you know. It's something that happens sooner or later. But
Well, I'm
the
sure
the
some
real
people,
the real artist should never be substituted. You know.
right? I'm sure some people look at it as like the easy way out, but really, like I said, unless, like you said, you've played around with it, the way you're going about it, it's still original art, right? Like you can claim that, like
I'm sorry.
you can claim that as your own art, the stuff that you create.
More or less. Well, if I look, many of the artists out there use AE art also, and know how to work with Photoshop and GIMP and other tools.
Mhm.
So they're basically doing um, their art as digital art. So I'm doing the same. I'm just
Right.
using pre-prepared tools to do that. It's the sign of the times, right?
Hmm.
So they've learned it one way. I'm learning the other with the tools I have at my disposal. So, um, but again, I do not compare myself, or I do not compare this art that is created artificially with real art. Okay.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's like photography. When I was in high school and college back in the 90s, I took photography, but it was on film, like actual rolls of film, and I developed it on sheets of film in a dark room. So all these things that you're seeing now with filters, doing the sepia toning and the contrast, and I knew how to do that in a dark room. I knew how to use a camera because everything was manual. Now everything, like if you want to, it has settings. It's like, okay, here's portrait mode and here's landscape mode. But like
Exactly.
when I went to school, it taught you like what aperture settings are better and what shutter speed do you need for sports. And so, yes, it is a little bit more easier, like especially to learn, but it's really good
It
to know the
it
back.
makes it makes it available for everyone, you
Mhm.
know. But the real artists in photography, it's like everything else. The real artists are those that know how to work with it and know the and you can see the difference between a real professional photographer and one amateur photographer. Same with art. The same thing with art.
We even came across that with our website. I was trying to just go and get like a prepackaged, how you can just go online and kind of plug it in and, oh, look. No, I have a friend who she's been doing this for years, and she did kind of have like a baseline, like, okay, we have this is what the look that she wanted, but then she like made everything so when he posts the podcast, it like automatically posts to the website, but it also posts to like all these other places. And so yeah, there's tools out there, but you still need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, the thing that I find that may be in my favor is the following. Most artists out there like myself who doesn't have money to do doesn't earn any money from the music,
Yeah.
that we basically don't have the money to invest. We invest already so much in the instruments and even time, right?
Hmm?
That when it comes to release stuff, if you're going to buy real art from real artists, it's going to cost you, and you don't have, and you'll never see that money back. Okay. And these tools provide me and provide others guys like me with the possibility of having good artwork in their digital releases, you know, without having to spend that money. So I think it's a fair game in that aspect. It's a fair game for guys like me. Obviously, big bands that have big labels behind them, they can pay those artists that do deserve to earn that money. But for poor guys like myself, let's use the tools that we have at our hands, and I shouldn't be blamed for it. I'm
I don't think
again,
so. I think everything that you're doing is, you're using the tools that you have available to make the best art that you have.
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm excited too because you've come up with a lot of cool concepts for new future releases. So I'm really curious what you're going to do or use on the next release that you have.
He's gonna make a Salqiu like book of all of his artwork, and
That'd be
then just
cool.
like,
I already have artwork enough. I've been a bit obsessed with this AI thing. The artificial
it's really
intelligence art.
cool.
I've been a bit obsessed these last weeks with it, and I actually already have art for the rest of my life in Salqiu. Even if I record, even if I continue recording like 4 or 5 albums per
Right.
year, I already have art for it. But the thing is, I have a few plans. I always have plans. Normally they shift completely, even from one day to the other.
Hmm.
But I'm right now I'm trying to start um, a project that is a dream of mine, Salqiu related, and that will take its time. And I can meantime release other Salqiu albums, but there is one Salqiu album I want to do, and I already have the concept and the art for it, and I'm going to have help from other people for
Oh
the
wow.
lyrics, for instance, and probably I will ask for some music also.
Oh wow.
But it's a it's a long it's a long term project because I think I will not hide it. My biggest dream since I started, the one that remains to be accomplished, is to have one Salty album on vinyl. Okay,
Ooh,
so vinyl is the thing, and I will try my best to fulfill that.
I will buy it.
So
Love
so
vinyl
I
so much.
will be working on that. I will, as a side project, as a long term, because all with Salquio is about the immediate, is
Hmm.
about the right now. Let's go. I record an album 5 days, and in the day that I end the last track, I release the album. Basically, that's how I do things. And this time, I will have a side project with time to work on it, with a very specific goal in mind. Maybe mid to long term, I don't know, but I know exactly how I want to do it and with whom I want to do it.
That's so
So,
exciting.
Yeah, I think when you get to that point when you're ready for that record, we'll have to like donate some funds to help you get that in
Yeah, you
vinyl
could
for us.
start. You could start like a Patreon or something, because I know when you do vinyl, you have to pay for a pressing. Like they have a minimum that you have to pay for in order for you to get it done.
well, the idea is to have a label behind me to do that.
Yep, yep, yep.
But I will probably have, but I will say no more because I don't want to spoil it.
Right.
No, don't spoil it.
Now you
No.
talked about how your lyrics and your music influence your art and the creation of that. What influence do you take into the actual music that you present to everybody?
Well, when I started Salq, I had a few. I come from a progressive rock background. Okay, I listened to progressive rock since I was about 11 years old because of my older sister, and then by the age of probably 15 or something, I started going into metal. So my two backgrounds, and I'm from my teenage years were in the 80s, the best time to be alive, probably. So yes, I'm old.
Me too.
I actually turned 53 years old last week, as you may know. Um,
52, right?
so so yeah,
41.
so old school. But just as a side note here and a parenthesis, um, I'm not like the usual old school people that only listens to old school stuff, and that those were the days and nobody did does.
Right.
No, I do think, actually, I do think I still love to hear the classics and the old school and the things that I started listening on the 80s, and when I discovered death metal in the late 80s and early 90s, it was mind blowing for me. But I actually think that the music that is done today is the best ever. So, and every year I'm blown away by releases. But when I started Salqiu, and that was the, sorry, the parenthesis. Uh, Back to your question, when I started Salqiu, I had influences such as Die Catafalque and Pandemonium, things that are quite experimental, and I tried to, in my best, because of my inability as a technic my technical ability is, well, inexistent. So so I tried to somehow mimic the ideals behind bands such as those, but with my personal touch, and that's how Salkyu has evolved since then. I think I passed that a bit, and I've always been trying new things. Like I did poetry albums such as Orfeu or even Ignobil, the two Portuguese spoken albums I have. So they are actually poems, and but I'm always trying to do something that I didn't do yet. I'm always trying to do different things and going. I won't lie about that. Going towards, always towards a more black metal, solid sound and less experimental. But I continue to experiment with things. I do love the atmospheric and the avant-garde side of black metal. I've always did. Um, Probably the first real innovative black metal related, well, people think, may argue that it's not black metal, but I still remember, I was always a death metal guy, but when I, in 1997, I heard Arcturus, La Máscara Infernal, it just blew me away. And I think, and then I started discovering Die Catafalque and Jire, other projects by that Hungarian guy, which is amazing. And I maybe that was the seed that was planted on 1997.
Yeah,
I actually
I
only
think
started playing about 9 years ago, so I've never played in my life. When my kids were born, I basically decided to buy a guitar and a bass and just started recording.
yeah, it's interesting because your path to musical taste is almost like mine because just like you in the late 80s, I had come out of the hard rock and hair rock era into like thrash. And then probably around 89 or 90, I started checking out Napalm Death and Morbid Angel and Entombed. But then, like you in 97, when it kind of, the death metal scene had kind of gone underground, like it was just kind of dormant because of everything else that was going on. And I went and picked up Emperor's Anthems album as well as Dimu's Darkness Triumphant. And that was my introduction to the black metal. So
Yeah,
kind of funny how you and I were kind of like on this same trajectory in terms of taste.
it.
You've
I
only been
think
playing
all
for
all
9 years.
all metalheads should have their evolution in terms of, and especially the old guys like us, right? So we have crossed the whole, all generations of metal until now. We have been there, so we've seen it evolve since the start, since its inception, basically.
Yep.
So it's natural, more than the new guys that go into, but even those normally start with hard rock or even I don't know, metalcore, and then start listening to other stuff and start liking it. um, from what I've seen, black metal guys are a bit different. When they go into black metal, they stay in black metal.
Mhm.
Right.
But well, I it, to each one its own. So I don't really discuss those things. People call me the ultimate poser, and I don't really care about that.
Wow,
Perhaps I am.
that's kind of ridiculous.
No, I think you're awesome. I mean, how many instruments do you know how to play?
I won't reveal that
Oh,
because the answer is none.
stop. Okay.
You know, the other about that, the other day I was discussing with a neighbor here. I was telling him I release albums and such, and the guy was asking, oh, so do you play guitar and do you want to play in our parties, etc. I don't know how to play guitar. I can't. No, the thing that, but you don't practice. No, I don't practice. When I sit down is to record. I don't practice at all. When I go to the studio, I hit the record button and I pick the guitar. And most of my albums are actually improvised. Okay,
Really?
so I never trained or practiced any riffs before I start recording.
Oh, that's crazy.
Um,
Amazing.
it's crazy. Many people has said that to me. But the thing is, I was talking to the guy and he was asking, but don't you like to play the guitar? Why don't you play more? And I said, no, what I really enjoy is to compose, not to play. The thing with me, the thing that really consumes me and gives me the mental healing and the cathartic moments that I need is assembling the track, is composing the track, is assembling the various pieces. So I record the guitar, I add some effects, I add samples, I do some keyboards, etc., etc. And that part of the assembly is what really makes me. Is my motto, my go-to plan. And the last thing I do normally in a track is the vocals, and I 95% of the times I do it in first take and without even trying before, because I have the microphone and the lyrics on my cell phone, and I'm just reading the lyrics while I do the stuff. And that I know it's different from many people, but that's basically how I do a full album in 5 days. I go to the studio for in 4 hours. I have a 12-minute track full ready. Obviously, and this is something that people has been telling me for a while. But why don't you curate your tracks? Why don't you spend time with them? Why don't you better them? Why don't you try to do something really grand? And it's not my thing. My thing is the immediate. My thing is I want to let it out, and I record it in a frenzy manner, and I want to to release it in a frenzy manner. That's why 2 hours after I finished an eighth track of an album, I release the album as is. I don't even care about mixing or no,
It gives
because
you that like
that's me. It's the immediate, the compulsive thing.
it gives you that emotion, like you're capturing your emotion at that time while you're recording, so you'll be able to kind of feel that when you listen back to it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna say it's like I can actually kind of appreciate that because even though I don't have any musical talent, I often thought to myself, well, what would I have done if I ever stuck with guitar, if I stuck with the drums? Like, would have I really wanted to be on the road most of the year touring? Is it something I've been interested in? A lot of that didn't really appeal to me. I mean, I think playing in front of people is great, but I'm more like you. I'm more like, well, I've got so many different interests that I would rather just kind of put together a record and put it out because I'm feeling it at that time. For you, it's cool because it's more like therapy rather than a career or a job. It's
yeah,
like you just do it right on the fly if you're feeling it at that moment. So I don't think people are appreciating when you're doing this. Like when they say that you need to curate, I think that's you're actually second guessing everything. You're just kind of like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. I'm just gonna give it to you raw and real right now. And I think that's a great thing. I really like
I
that
do too.
approach.
People find it hard to believe that I do those albums in such short periods of time. But I have a full time job, so I have two kids, two 9 year old twins. I have a family. I have things to do. So when in those rare moments that I have to go to the studio, I take the most out of it.
Mhm.
So it's really those moments are for recording, are for doing music, and to be honest, I've actually only listened to my last album after I released it. This is weird, strange. People normally find it hard to believe, but actually, this is truth. I only after I released the album, I listened to it as a whole. So in people were telling me, because I normally put on my Facebook the albums that I listen the most during the week, and people were joking with me, oh, you're listening to your own albums, etc., etc. And I told them, listen, I only actually listened to the album after I released it, so obviously I'm listening to it now. It's on my chart because I'm listening to it.
Right.
uh, and I I went. Sometimes I go to revisit some of my old albums, and I ask myself, how the hell did I do this? Um, because I don't know. I Right now I'm not in the same feeling or vibe that I was when I recorded that. Okay, so that's why my albums are so different from each other, because they always represent a very specific time frame where I had a very specific mindset and vibe. Okay, it's hard to explain, but it's the best I can do.
Yeah, you gotta be in the right headspace for whatever it is you're doing.
It's almost like you were doing a live performance while you were recording it. It's going to be a different experience for you every time you're going to pick that up and do it again. And for you, when you're saying you're improving so much of your music, it's never going to be like you're going to just get in and play the same thing over and over again. It's more, like you were saying, cathartic for you to just
Yeah.
express your emotions through your music.
Actually, I never played those riffs again in my life. Right? I recorded them. They're recorded. They're released. I'm not doing live shows. I don't have a band. I'm a solo. I'm a rat basement. Those guys that live in the basement and do recordings and scream to a microphone. That's basically me. I will never play those riffs again. So though my albums capture a moment in time
Yeah.
that's not to be repeated.
Yeah, I find I talk to her a lot about it. It's like over the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, I've discovered so many great artists such as yourself that are just their own guys doing their own thing. And like sometimes I'll listen to a record that I just come across and I'm like, this is really fucking good. I wonder who this band is. And I find it's like one person. I'm like, this is so crazy because that's so great
Mm-hmm.
that you guys can do this kind of stuff. Like it sounds like a band thing, but it's just you.
It's your whole concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, what kind of programming or setups do you use to create this monster that you have?
Monster
Well,
orchestra.
I started, like I said, I started playing about 9 years ago. So I basically installed. I bought a tower PC, for just for my music. It's not connected to the internet. It's right there in order to for me to I have an interface that basically connects my guitar to the computer, and I use the same program for recording and editing as I've used since ever, which is Cakewalk Sonar X3, I believe it's something like that. I know there are a lot better ones out there right now, but I've used the same. I'm always using the same, and my gear is not that. I have a microphone. I have now. I have two guitars. I had to sell my bass when I came here to Brazil, and my semi-acoustic guitar. So part of my gear was sold in order for me to move. Um, so I do have and use lots of VSTs, and VSTs are, you know, software that you can where you can emulate different instruments. So I use that a lot with the keyboard,
Oh,
um, a basic keyboard, a Holland basic keyboard, only MIDI player. So, and that's basically it. It's a very poor system. I do use samples. I do use samples and loops. When I have to, I'll use it. Sometimes for different sound experiences, I go check YouTube to see if there's anything I can use and use as background sounds and effects. So I basically whatever is at hand I'll use.
Very nice.
But my gear is very limited.
But it works for you. That's what's important.
yeah.
Yeah.
um, you mentioned in Echo that when you moved from Portugal to Brazil, that some of it had to do with the movie The Great Showman. Did you want to kind of elaborate on why that was?
Well, talking about movies, right?
Oh, just a little bit
Okay.
if you want.
That I'm not much of a movie guy, because and for years I don't quite remember last time I went to a cinema, but there was this time when I was in need to decide about my life, and I wasn't happy with my lifestyle in Portugal, and I wasn't happy with the time I had for my family, and I wasn't happy with anything basically. So there was this possibility of moving to a new country to try a new thing. This at the age of 50, so people call me crazy, but they're not lying when they say that. Um, and actually, when I was in the process of deciding, I saw that movie on. I was home alone one afternoon, and there was this movie. I'm not into musicals, okay, but for some reason, I was in front of the TV when the movie started, and I watched the movie. Okay, so it was almost like I had to see that. That was the first hint, and the movie actually connected with me in different ways. In the way of the guy, in the movie.
Hugh Jackman?
If you know, yeah, Hugh Jackman. But the character that is playing, it basically puts it all on stake for a dream. Okay, so basically, he sells out for with a goal, and it shifts his life for a goal, for the family, for and he bets all. He puts all the whole bet on the table to do that thing.
He's all in. Yeah.
Is
It's a
all in. Is
people
all in on his dream, on his life changing dream. Is all there. He goes for it, and the whole film. There are a few things that try to and sometimes in little things succeed in deviating him from his path, but he actually never deviates from his path, and he stays truthful to what took him in that direction. And uh, and and during the film things happen in the way that it seems like they are supposed to happen that way. He knows people in the right circumstances and the guys that will be quite important further on. So there are a sequence of things, from decisions to uh, coincidences or things that look like destiny, that make him go through his life fulfilling, making that shift in his life, but always following the line that he had in mind. Okay. And fighting for it, even against all odds, even against disasters, fires, um, and accusations of treasury, etc. But the guy always stays truthful to his principles, and the thing that really marked me was that at the time, that was the movie that I needed to see to take my decision. Okay, to make my decision of, okay, doesn't matter what how old I am, doesn't, I need to do this.
Mhm.
And it was it was a big moment for me in terms of deciding what my future life would be. I don't know the future from now, but I know what has happened to me after that change, and all I can say is that it my quality of life, not in terms of money or anything, but my quality of life has improved significantly with that change, with that decision I took. Okay.
Yeah, we as we get older, we constantly deal with the same things. Like we're not afraid to make changes if we think it's going to improve our life. So I can totally see where you're coming from.
I was 37 when I decided to start sailing. Like
Yeah.
most sailors are 18. They're right out of maritime school. I midlife crisis, I think. I was like, "Up, gonna go sail."
That's what I thought. Midlife crisis. It's a bit. But the thing is, the thing is, the movie itself is about that. It's about completely changing your life and betting everything on that change, even if it goes wrong. But at least you tried. And that was what strike me.
Mhm.
What strike me. I'm sorry, as you know, I'm not an English speaker. Okay, so I try my best. I
Perfect.
think I have a good vocabulary anyway, but
I have a
it's not
better
my first
I have a
language.
better handling of English than you do, and I still screw it up. So you have the excuse.
You
I don't.
speak multiple languages. I mean,
I do speak 5 languages, to be
That's
honest.
great.
So, but that was the importance of the movie, and why, even if it's not the best movie I've ever seen, it's probably one of the most important movies I've ever seen, because
It was
it
meaningful.
was it was meaningful, and it helped me on a specific time in my life when I needed to take a very rough, tough, and difficult decision. And the movie actually had an impact on the decision I took. So it's because of that, it's one of the movies of my life. Not because it's the film is actually pretty good. Even the music is good in that movie.
Yeah, we haven't
Um,
had a chance to
I can't
catch it
believe I
yet,
haven't seen it.
but we probably will at some point.
I think
yeah,
when it came out, I was not sailing. I was still working, my regular office job, and I was also a dance teacher. And that year, I was teaching dance, and my girls were going to dance competitions, and the music was everywhere. And I said, I'm tired of all the Greatest Showman. I don't want to hear
yeah.
these songs anymore. So I never watched the movie, but I love musicals.
You
I'm
should
tired
you
of
should
hearing
watch.
over.
The other thing that got my attention on it is because it also deals with the misfits, with the freaks,
Mhm.
and I've always been a bit of a misfit in society, a bit of a freak, not physically, well, uh, besides my beer belly. Okay, so but I've never been like but even that part was somehow related with me. Okay, so the even the misfits have the opportunity. Even the misfits have a meaning to the whole to the system the they're not insignificant.
No,
No one is insignificant. Okay,
right,
everyone has its value. Uh, you probably many people never it is never able to find the value that they have, or which is unfortunate, but everyone has its value. They just need to search for it, and that film touches also that part of taking the best out of the guys that are the outcasts, and also, like I said, that also had a connection with me because I've always been some sort of outcast and misfit. Um, so there you have it.
yeah. And speaking of which, because you said it's better for yourself that you moved out there, but your family too. We catch you with a lot of pictures of your kids and your wife on
You're
the
on the
beach.
beach.
How do you find that balance between your music and the family life? How do you work that out? Do they support you in all this?
There is no balance.
That's the secret.
The secret is there is no balance. The
I'm
secret
always
is
angry. It sounds like the Hulk.
if you notice, I released in within a month and a half. I released two albums. Okay, two full albums, and between that I had 3 weeks of vacation when I went to Portugal, visit my family, and I went to London to show London to the kids. So basically, I recorded one album, went on vacations, came back and recorded a second album. So the balance is something. Why did I record that second album? Because I was here all alone for 1 week. My family only returned 1 week after myself. So basically, I took that time. I was alone to release an album, and that's basically what I do. There is no balance when you have to be with the family, and most time you do. You don't have time to record. I don't have time to go to studio, and my kids are tremendously demanding. They're little ghouls from hell, and in a way they are a source of inspiration for black metal, right? So I have two ghouls from hell here in house, which are a source of inspiration. um, but the thing is, when I have that time, and I never know when I have it, I try to take the most out of
So
it.
you just
And that's the
capitalize on as
secret.
much
I
time that
just
you're allowed to
capitalize.
have. Yeah.
I can tell you that last year I was for about 6 or 7 months without picking my guitar. So I the second half of the year I didn't push the record button or anything. So I spent 7 months without playing.
Right.
So that's it. Basically, there is no balance. You just have to take it as it is. When the time comes, you grab it.
Yeah. So you talked about you did a collaboration with the guy from Belgium on a record. I have a scenario for you. If
Oh
you
no.
could, what are your top three dream collaborations that you would like to work with in the future, if you could? So three artists that you would really love to work with.
Well, okay. Well,
I think
one
I already
one
know one of them, but
one is obvious, right? One is absolutely obvious. I will never get that there, but uh, collaborating with the whole mighty Devin Townsend would
yes,
be
yes, yes,
Because you are the black
obviously.
metal Devin Townsend.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm the no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm no, I'm the wannabe black metal Devin Townsend. Now the from for many years I there was one artist that I thought that I would love to work with, not because I can't even explain why, but it's Dan Sweno.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, that'd be so sweet.
Dan Sweno, especially because of his album. Uh, it's basically a metal album with Marillion-like keyboards that he has, a Moon Tower,
Yep.
and that album real always fascinated me because it is the crossover between the early '90s progressive rock and death and metal. So it's a crossover. It's really fantastic. And so Dan Sweno would be one of the guys that I would love to work with. Probably the third guy. I'm in doubt here between Nas, the guy from Auratus and Achilles and Nightbringer, um, or the guy from Falk and Gire, the Hungarian guy, which I'm just having a blank here and
I
can't
don't
remember the name, but is a maestro, is a master of his game. So I would love to work with him.
Yeah, I was wondering, did you ever hear Sueno when he was Edge of Sanity did that police cover of Invisible Sun? I always enjoyed
Yeah,
the shit out of it. It was something different that they were doing. I really enjoyed that a lot.
absolutely. I'm going just because I'm having a blank, and the guy from Guy Catafalque, the Hungarian guy,
Who's
is
this guy?
oh,
Shit.
Tamás Katai.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
Tamás. So Tamás would be the third, probably the guy that I would love to work with.
very nice. I should try to hook you up with the guy. I think his name's Chris, and I think he's from Norway. Maybe I had to double
Which
check.
one? Chris with a K?
Uh, no, no. But he's a solo guy too. But he does like a lot of influence from like Enslaved and stuff like that. But he likes a lot of the prog stuff that you do. I'll have to try to hook you two up. I think it'd be kind of cool for you guys to kind of chat and see if you can come up with anything because he's pretty talented too.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but I actually before I start playing music, I was a writer, a CD reviewer.
Oh, that's cool.
For 10 years, I wrote for an American site called Prognosis, strictly about progressive rock. So actually, during 10 years, I was basically only listening to progressive rock and then on the side metal. And one day I wrote about 1008 reviews or something like that during
Oh,
that
wow.
period. And one day I woke up and said, I don't want to write anymore. I want to do my own music. And that's how basic, again, it's always compulsive things. And
Right.
my wife, she tells me that all the time, you're too compulsive, you do things without thinking. Yeah, no, it's how I am. Those things are really compulsive, so I just stopped writing and bought a guitar and a bass and start playing. That's what I did.
That's how I ended up with four spiders.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
in October of 2021, he decided that he wanted to start raising spiders. So it's not even been a year, and he has four tarantulas, and he
You,
raises them, and he also um, does like these special terrariums where like there's moss.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen the pictures. But
So
the curious thing is that many years ago, well, I left my parents' home when I was 20, okay, and went to the military, and I was an army officer for 7 years.
oh
And
wow.
when I got out, I opened a pet shop. The before I went to the IT world, where I've been for more than 20 years now, I had a pet shop, and I had tarantulas in the pet shop, and the pet shop was in a mall, in a shopping mall, and I perfectly remember that. Okay, so the crazy part of me is not from now; it's always been there. Okay, so I would pick the tarantula, put it in my head, and go to the coffee shop to buy a coffee.
You put it
So
on your head?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I would this is no, I'm not joking you around. I would pick the tarantula, put it in my head, and went to the coffee shop for a coffee, and people
Oh
would
wow.
start screaming, and so okay, so basically, you have to picture. It's me in a nutshell. The guy with the tarantula in his head.
I
I didn't do that with the scorpions.
Right,
Okay,
no,
I
no.
had scorpions there, but I didn't. But with
right.
tarantulas, I would. And there was one guy who bought me about 5 or 6 tarantulas. The guy was crazy about tarantulas, so I know everything about that, Melissa. Believe me.
They're
So
very beautiful. We were just admiring them earlier. They're so colorful, and you probably in Brazil you see them. Just where we live there's no tarantulas, but like I'm sure the one of them, Cruella, is a Brazilian,
She's Costa Rican.
a Costa Rican. I'm sorry. I
no,
thought,
there are tarantulas here, but I haven't yet seen one on the wild, fortunately, because most of them here are venomous. So
Yeah.
I
mm,
prefer not. I
if
prefer
you go,
not. The ones I had in the shop were not venomous,
yeah, ours
obviously.
are not either. And if you were in the United States, if you we're on the East Coast, if you go towards the Southwest or further west, you can find some out in the
Yeah,
wild. They're just crawling around. But we know his first tarantula that he got, she was or he was a baby, like this teeny tiny thing, and now she's like maybe,
Probably about the size of
yeah,
a finger,
about
maybe.
that
oh,
big now.
yeah.
She's grown, or he. I keep saying she. We thought it was a she, and now after he's molted a few times, we've realized it's a he. But he's so pretty. He's orange and black.
You never know. You never know about the pronouns anymore.
Right.
So yeah, it's you have to get used to our times, right? You
Yep.
never know about the pronouns that you should use nowadays.
Right. Well, before we bring this to a close, tell people how they can find you in your music on the web right now.
Well, it's quite difficult to find because I'm completely underground. I'm the underground of the underground, as a real wannabe black metal Devin Townsend should be. But the best way is to actually look up in Google or something, or in Bandcamp for Salqiu, the name that it's right here, here, right? Yeah, right here,
Right there.
and salqiu.bandcamp.com. All my music is there. Not my own, not all of my projects, because as you know, I have a few. My main project, the one that has more releases, is Salqiu, but I'm also the guy behind Zero None, which actually is my most successful one,
Oh, that's
even if it
awesome.
only has 4 EPs, but it's my most successful. I also have a collaboration project called Thermolin, which was fortunately considered by many sites and websites and even reviewers like one of the best albums last year, black metal albums,
Oh,
and it was really cool. But I also have Zud and Não Houve Amanhecer, which is a Portuguese name. So I'm all over the place. And probably until the end of this year, I will have a new one collaborative with a French guy, which will be called Ash/Ash. So there will be news coming up in the next few months. But again, the main project, which I have the biggest discography, 9 full lengths in 4 years or 5 years, something like that. It's
Crazy.
Salqiu. It's Salqiu. So salqiu.bandcamp.com, and you can listen to it.
And you can always hear my Metal Time radio.
Oh yes, like
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, if people would believe you, I would be rich by now. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's bad news for you. Sorry
I think it is bad news for us.
for it's sorry for being me bringing that up. Okay, but
Nah,
we
okay.
won't stop playing your stuff. We
we
love
will
it.
always play your stuff. It's actually kind of interesting because like when we put our stuff on the web and it'll tell us like how many people, it doesn't tell us how many people stream it, but it tells us how many people download it. And it's been all over the place since I got home in May. So, some stuff will have like low downloads and some stuff will have really high downloads, and there's no reason for it. We look at what music we've been playing, what we might have talked about, and I'm like, there's no reason. Like it makes
No rhyme or reason.
no sense.
Yeah.
Like why this one's getting more downloads than this one.
It's a Russian roulette. You never
It
know.
really is.
Just to give you an example, my last album hasn't had a single review out there. You can Google for it. It's nowhere. It's only on my Bandcamp, and some people mention it in forums all over the net, but that's it. It doesn't. But I'm used to it. It's nothing that bothers me because again, I do music and I've told you this I think a few times. I don't do music for money. I do music to as a healing process, and the cathartic moments that it provides me.
Yep.
And obviously I love when people likes it. It makes my day. But the basic principle behind it is for me is a process for me, for myself. It's something for me. uh, I obviously like to release it and that other people listen to it, but the main thing behind it is it was made for me.
Yep.
So that's the most important part.
I agree. I feel everything when you with through your music. Like I really do feel it, and I think that's what makes it special.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you. I hope I was not I was not boring or anything like that.
Nope.
No,
I appreciate very much the opportunity that you provided me
we were
to
so
have this
happy to
talk,
have you.
Yeah.
and
Thank you for
I
doing this
actually
with us.
enjoyed
We
it a lot.
appreciate it.
Thank you, James. And they've always been there since the start of my especially
Journey. We call it the journey.
The journey.
yeah, my journey. You've always been there and always been supportive, and there are a few things that I do not forget. There are a few principles that I follow, and supporting the guys, or cherish. Okay, so being appreciative of the guys that have been there for me since the beginning is something that I treasure, and you are one of the guys that I really treasure for that. Okay.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank
And I
you.
consider you a friend as well as one of my favorite artists. So I do appreciate this very greatly.
Thank you, James.
Hang around, and
Thank you, Melissa.
we'll talk to you in 1 second. So just hold on.
We're gonna pause and we'll get you offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.